as we welcome in TSN Hockey Insider Darren Dreger, who, if you missed him a couple of weeks ago, is going to join us on Mondays. How we doing, Dregs?
Yeah, we're doing okay. It was a good weekend. I'm not sure. I didn't check. Normally, I like to look at the forecast, especially when I'm doing the show with you guys, see what it's like in the western part of our country, the Pacific region. I didn't do that. It's a glorious 25 degrees Celsius here in southern Ontario.
You surely saw our weekend, though. You saw what happened here.
Yes. Yes, I did. Yes, I did.
Thanks for rubbing it in our faces.
Yeah. Blake took a canoe to work today.
Yeah.
What can you there's some consternation here a little bit just with JT Miller and what seemed to happen with the opening faceoff in Philadelphia, and he didn't take any draws from there. What do you know?
Yeah, well, the only thing I know, and nobody's going to disclose specifics, is it hand, is it wrist? I mean, anytime you take a centerman away from the dot, then it's pretty obvious that he's feeling something arm related. And the fact that they were guarded with JT and he's not going to disclose was curious. But what I was told this morning from people I trust who are close, that it is not serious. Doesn't mean that there's something bugging him, but it feels like it's something that he's going to be able to play through. And we know the type of gamer JT Miller is. So I think he will continue to play through. And as long as he's medically able to do so, then it shouldn't be an issue.
We're saying for fans like watching, I think you can come to grips that it's a full contact sport. If you get slammed against the boards and you get injured, them's the breaks. When it's just nothing, you just feel like you're robbed a little bit of a player that you need on the ice.
Yeah, and he's such a key part of the success of the Vancouver Canucks. I mean, Ray Ferraro and I talked about this the other day on the podcast, and I don't remember what game Ray was specifically talking about. It's probably the Miller overtime game, right? Where it just kind of felt like, Elias Pettersson was sort of coming online, and there were other interesting, sort of opportunities that were developing through that game. But it did have the smell of JT Miller moment. Like he had to kind of throw the team on his back, as he's done a number of times in his time with the Vancouver Canucks. But he did that. Ken Hitchcock used to use the term head of the snake, right? And normally it was in describing international play. And, if you just isolate this player, get to that goaltender, physical on that defense, whatever, you cut the head of the snake off, you'll have success. And, pretty much every night, the head of the snake for the Vancouver Canucks is JT Miller.
Yeah, that's fair.
Thatcher Demko is skating occasionally, Rick Tocchet says. Of course, he's been skating occasionally since the first day of training camp some time ago. Dregs, what do you know about Demko?
Yeah, well, so the last time we talked about this, which is a couple of weeks thereabout, the timeline, which is a loose one, and it was loose at the time I suggested 3 to 4 weeks, and I'm sticking to that. But that was 2 weeks ago. So now you're at the midpoint of the long version of that expectation. So skating occasionally, does that mean that the Canucks are willing to push that timeline back? I don't know. What I know is, and you guys know this, I mean, he's not physically ready to join the team. And so when he joins the team, then I think you hit the clock. But again, does that mean, he needs 3 or 4 practices, full-scale practices, before he can jump back into the crease? What does that look like? And the Canucks just don't have an answer for it. I mean, the fact that the goaltending has been, I don't know, how would you guys describe it? Okay.
Well, Kevin Lankin has been great. Has been great. So, I mean, that certainly makes it a little less urgent. Not that they're going to rush him back, because I think they know they were at risk of that in the playoffs anyway.
Yeah.
So they're not. I don't think they're going to rush him back, but I think they can exhale a little bit with Lankin that's played.
And that matters, and that allows you. It's no different in Toronto, as an example. I'm not comparing Joseph Woll to Thatcher Demko, because Thatcher Demko is a game changer. He's going to lead the Vancouver Canucks to places that the other guys probably aren't equipped to do, but you still need at least an average to slightly above average brand of goaltending. And if Toronto didn't go out and invest the dollars in these Stolars, they'd have a problem in Toronto, because Woll just isn't up to the task. So the fact that Vancouver went out, they're bringing in Lankinen, that takes some heat off, puts a little bit of internal competition into the mix with Sheloffs. I mean, maybe the best case scenario, they at least have a stabilized goaltending group there. So that might be long-term looking at the best interests here.
They've had Dakota Joshua on the trip with them.
Well,
and
but just before we leave goaltending, Dregs, that they got Lankinen for less than $1 million when they got him. I mean, that is
other teams have to be pinching themselves.
Yeah. I mean, it looks like a season-saving move.
It really is. And it might, again, we're so few games into the regular season that it's hard to put an exclamation point on that. But the one thing we've learned over time here is if you don't have three quality NHL goaltenders available to you, then you don't have enough and you've got a problem. So when you've got an opportunity to pull a guy like Lankinen out of the mix, it's best case scenario. It's kind of, again, not to go back to Toronto, but it's like they used Marty Jones last year in a similar vein, and it turned out to be a godsend to the Maple Leafs. So I'm sure there are clubs looking around and going, geez, we missed the boat on that one.
Dakota Joshua, it sounds like it's just a fitness and pain tolerance issue for him. And when those two things are met, it sounds like he's ready to go, and he's been joining them on the road trip and the non-contact jerseys there, but it doesn't sound like it's that far away, is it?
No, it isn't that far away, and you're right. I mean, he'll practice again in that non-contact jersey, but the indication I'm being given here is he's probably a couple of weeks away. And that's just, again, getting him back up to game speed and everything that goes into, getting him to the place where he can play the game that he needs to be able to play, right? He's an energy guy. He does a lot of things, but he supplies it. But I'll say this, just having him around is a huge boost. It's a lift because he's a good dude, well accepted and a big part of that dressing room. So the fact that he's now 10 days to 2 weeks from being available to Rick Tocchet and the coaching staff is one of the NHL's better stories to this point of the regular season. And
I think if Danton Heinen had come in and had been like Dakota Joshua, I think maybe the want to get him back in would be a little bit lessened, at least the urgency. But nobody's been able to fill that Dakota Joshua role really.
No.
Heinen is not been that guy just yet.
Yeah, no, that's fair. And maybe there's time for him to develop that chemistry or find his groove. Again, even though you look at the standings and you can see what's kind of happening around the NHL, you remind yourself, okay, well, there's 6 games into the regular season or less. It's not that big of a deal, but it can be a big deal if you don't find that groove. So I think that Heinen's a good fit. I do. I look at Victor Arvidsson in Edmonton. I thought that he'd be more impactful than what he's been, but sometimes it's a chemistry experiment for these players. But I know the coaching staff likes the game that Heinen plays. So whether or not he's ready to find his stride yet or not, long-term, they see value in him as a player.
Last question here, but what's it like podcasting with the BC Sports Hall of Famer?
So there's a backstory to this. And I was one of those, a number of people who, had some level of influence, right? I was, one of the people involved in the process of first submitting the nomination called me. What do you think? And of course I was, supporting it in any way, shape or form that I could. So all of a sudden I get an email, I don't know, a couple, 3 weeks ago, acknowledging that Ray is going to be inducted into the BC Sports Hall of Fame. And I'm like, well, this is fabulous, so I go back and I'm like, well, does Ray know? Oh yeah. Ray knows, he knows. So I'm like, okay, well, I got to reach out and congratulate him. So I call him and I'm like, hey bud, congratulations. Crickets. He's like, what are you talking about? And I'm like, oh my God, maybe I misread the email. Maybe I wasn't supposed to tell him. Maybe he doesn't know yet that I'm breaking the news to him. But we got like 2 minutes into this dance back and forth before I said, all right, the BC Sports Hall of Fame. Oh, yeah. They called me a couple of, I was twisting in the wind. But man, hey, look, I mean, the province.
He must have been traveling that day.
I don't know. He knew. He just, I don't know. He's having a bit of a brain freeze, but it scared the bejesus out of him. But richly deserved, no doubt about that.
Yeah. Good stuff. You're a Hall of Famer to us. Love having you on Mondays. Thank you for this. We'll catch up in 7 days, Drex.
All right, guys. Thank you.